On October 24, 1929, Wall Street collapsed. 13 million Americans lost everything. But while crowds threw themselves from buildings and families slept in the streets, a small group of investors multiplied their fortunes by 300%, 500%, even 1,000%. In 2008, history repeated itself. 8 million Americans lost their homes, 50 million fell into poverty, and the 5 largest Wall Street banks distributed $140 billion in bonuses. In 1997, Asia crumbled. In 2001, Argentina broke. In 2010, Greece was dismantled. And in each of these catastrophes, while entire nations sank, stratospheric fortunes were built in silence. The question nobody asks is simple. How is it possible that the same collapse destroys millions and enriches a few? The answer lies in a brutal truth that spans centuries. Crises are not accidents. Crises are the moment when wealth changes hands. Here, where history, economics, and power converge, we reveal the invisible mechanisms that govern nations and destroy others. We live under an illusion of stability. We look at growth charts, stock indices, rising GDPs, and we believe the system works. But behind this facade, there exists a hidden pattern that has repeated for 200 years. Every 10, 15 years, the world collapses. When the economy is expanding, money flows easily. Low interest rates, rising investments, confidence. But this expansion is always accompanied by bubbles. Real estate, stocks, corporate debt, cryptocurrencies, and every bubble has a limit. When it bursts, credit disappears. Companies fail, unemployment explodes. Assets plummet. And this is where the real game begins. While the majority desperately sells to survive, the big investment funds, with billions in reserves, buy. They buy bankrupt companies for a fraction of their value. They buy real estate in bulk. They buy debt securities from entire countries. And then they wait. When the economy recovers, and it always recovers, these assets are worth much more. Wealth wasn't destroyed. It was transferred. The protagonists of this system aren't just individual billionaires. They're institutions: BlackRock, Vanguard, JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, Citadel. Funds that control tens of trillions of dollars. They don't bet on success. They bet on collapse. But the mechanism is global. When the 2008 crisis began in the United States, it didn't stay contained. Within weeks, it spread across Europe, Asia, Latin America. Why? Because European banks had bought American mortgage securities. The interconnection isn't the weakness of the system. It's the design. Because the more connected, the easier to spread the collapse, and the more opportunities for those who are positioned. But there's an even deeper layer, the rating agencies. Moody's, Standard & Poor's, Fitch. If your rating drops, the interest you pay explodes, and these agencies aren't neutral. In 2008, they gave A ratings, maximum security, to toxic securities that caused the collapse, and they were never held accountable. Central banks also play this game. When they print money to save the economy, who receives it first? Banks and large corporations. The population receives crumbs, with years of delay, usually in the form of inflation that erodes wages. In 2020, during the pandemic, central banks worldwide injected $10 trillion into the economy. Billionaires' wealth grew 54% in 1 year. The average worker saw their purchasing power fall. And there are the vulture funds. Companies specialized in buying debts from failed countries for pennies and then suing these countries in international courts to receive full value. Argentina faced this for decades. American funds bought Argentine bonds for 15% of their value and demanded 100%, and they won. Greece, 2010. Public debt exploded. The European Union and IMF offered rescue, but with brutal conditions: pension cuts, forced privatizations. Unemployment reached 27%. The Greek economy shrank 25%. Suicides increased 35%. Meanwhile, international funds bought ports, airports, Greek islands. Greece was dismantled and sold. Argentina, 2001. The country defaulted. Banks froze accounts. The middle class evaporated. But while Argentinians smashed ATMs in the streets, foreign investors bought Argentine companies for nothing. Land, wineries, oil, everything changed hands. Asia, 1997. Thailand, Indonesia, South Korea, all collapsed. The IMF came in with bailouts and with demands: open markets, privatized state companies, cut social spending. Asian companies were bought by American and European corporations at ridiculous prices. The Asian crisis wasn't an accident. It was a transfer of economic control. And 2008 was the apex. Millions lost homes, jobs, savings. But funds like BlackRock bought 200,000 residential properties in the U.S. Today, they're the largest owner of single-family homes in the country. Warren Buffett invested $5 billion in Goldman Sachs during the crisis and made billions in profit. Carl Icahn bought bankrupt companies and resold them with 400% profit. Crisis doesn't destroy wealth, it redistributes it. Here's the truth nobody tells: the system was never designed to be stable. It was designed to collapse regularly. Because collapse is the moment when assets change hands. It's the moment when debts are restructured. It's the moment when power is consolidated. Economists call this creative destruction, but there's nothing creative about it. It's a concentration machine. With each crisis, fewer people control more resources. With each crisis, the distance between top and bottom increases. And with each crisis, the next one becomes more likely because the system becomes more fragile, more concentrated, more vulnerable. The system doesn't work because it's solid. It works because people trust it. Trust is the only thing that sustains currencies, markets, banks. Dollars are paper. Stocks are promises. Debts are bets on the future. None of this has real value, it has perceived value. And when trust breaks, the system implodes. That's what happened in 1929. That's what almost happened in 2008. And that's what will happen again. Because trust is eroding. Global debts exceed $300 trillion. 3 times the world GDP. No country, no institution can pay this. So the game continues: print more money, refinance debts, push the collapse forward. But with each cycle, the foundation becomes more unstable. And when the next collapse comes, and it will come, it will be bigger than anything we've ever seen. The result is simple: wealth flows upward. Always. In 1980, the average American CEO earned 30 times more than the average worker. Today, they earn 350 times more. Not because they work more, because they control assets. And these assets appreciate exponentially during crises. Meanwhile, the ordinary person faces stagnant wages, rising inflation, unpayable debts. The middle class is disappearing. In the United States, 63% of the population can't cover a $500 emergency. In Europe, social mobility is in free fall. In the developing world, billions live on less than $5 a day. This isn't a failure of the system, it's the system working. Because modern capitalism isn't about producing wealth. It's about extracting it, and the most efficient tool of extraction is crisis. In the end, the question isn't whether there will be another collapse. The question is, who will profit from it? Because crises aren't natural storms, they're constructed events. And someone is always positioned to harvest the wreckage. Debt isn't a problem to be solved, it's the engine that drives everything. Power isn't conquered through work. It's conquered through control over credit, over assets, over trust. And nations don't fall alone, they're brought down. If this gave you a new perspective, subscribe. History has the answers. I'll show you where to look.